Hey, thank you for being a part of our study in Isaiah. We're picking up where we left off yesterday. With the scene is the king of Assyria and his underlings and their army have come to defeat Jerusalem. And they have said all sorts of very deceptive things about what the situation's like, but they've also greatly disrespected God. They put God on a level with the gods of the other nations that surround Israel. And so Hezekiah has gone to Isaiah. Hezekiah's the king. He has asked Isaiah what Isaiah thinks, and Isaiah said, God's got this. That's Bradley translation. But then in the middle of that, he prayed. And so we're gonna zero in on this part of the prayer. He says, so Lord, verse 20, this is Isaiah 37:20. So now, O Lord our God, save us from his hand, so that the kingdoms of the earth may know that you alone are the Lord. And then Isaiah came after that prayer and he said, because you prayed concerning Sennacherib, the Lord has a word for him, and that is, they're out of here. So let's talk just for a minute about God's glory. Why is it so important that the people of God display God's glory to the world, and that we open the door for God's glory to be seen?
That's kind of a hard one. In my own thinking, when I'm thinking about what I need to be doing or a decision that I'm making, part of the equation of that thought has to do with, am I thinking about doing something that diminishes Jesus' light in the world?
Right.
And that's really what's being talked about right here. His glory, as people of God, we should do our best not to diminish his light. And the reason that I hone in on light rather than glory is that glory is his light. Right. And true light only emanates from him. And we really maybe can't get our minds wrapped around that, but in the 22nd chapter of Revelation, he is the light of the world. And even though the sun and the moon are there, it is his light that illuminates everything, and there is no night because he's always there. And there is no light there is no true light except that emanates from his being.
Right.
So for me, all of that is wrapped up in this word that the Lord has spoken concerning him, that the word that he's speaking is that God will not allow his glory to be diminished.
Yeah, absolutely. So the king of Assyria had boasted, and let me give you, this is some of the boasts. Your servants have mocked the Lord. You said, with my many chariots I've gone up the heights of the mountains, the recesses of Lebanon, I've followed cedars and cypress. I've gone to the remotest heights, I've dug well, I drank waters. And yet the Lord is going to have a response to that. You hear the boasting, human boasting? And Rudy talks so much about guardrails. If God allowed us to live like that, our world would probably already be cinders.
Yes.
And so God has to say, no, let me tell you what I think. This is God's word. I know you're rising up and you're sitting down. You're going out, you're coming in. You're raging against me. Because you have raged against me and your arrogance has come to my ears, I'm going to put a hook in your nose and I'm going to send you back home. That's against Bradley translation. But that's what happened to him. He went back home. Yeah. And then he says, I will defend this city to save it for my own sake and for the sake of my servant David. Let me tell you a quick story. I belong to a men's small group at Maywood. I left the children's area, finally graduated, and I'm now in a men's group. And so most of the guys in my group are in recovery. One of the guys, I knew him before and I know him after. His before life was really a wreck, and his after meeting Jesus and living with him is about as good as it comes. He meets with the pastor of the church, Jay Taylor, and they have a on-phone Zoom meeting, prayer meeting. I think it's on Wednesdays. He keeps a prayer book. And he was just so full of light. He said, you know, I write these things down. I love how he talks. I write these things down, and God answers my prayer, and I'm able to go back and check them and to see what's in there. So we're breaking up, and one of the guys who's a new member of the group, he turned to me on the way out the door, and he said, I think I'm in his prayer book. That's why he was here. That's a picture of God's glory being displayed. That's a picture of God using a human being to show his glory. He uses the nations. He uses guys that cook great food and have wonderful sense of hospitality. He uses us to display his glory. Our arrogance, on the other hand, must be resisted by him.
By ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, that arrogance is the opposite of humility.
Absolutely.
And pride is your internal light outshining God's light, which goes back to what I was saying about light diminishing, anything diminishing his light is not good.
Right. We need to close this out really quick because God did defend it, and the people left. In fact, God sent what I would call the death angel, and had 185,000 Assyrian soldiers died in one night. And then their ruler went back home, went into his temple, and his sons killed him with a sword. Tough ending.
It is, but it doesn't mean that 185,000 soldiers from Assyria are destined for hell forever.
Right.
Because somehow, as we read it today, they serve a purpose for us to be able to see God's glory, and we wouldn't be able to see that without him displaying his power. Therefore, in my mind, somehow they are servants of the Lord.
There you go.
Because they were sacrificed actually for us.
There you go. Very nice. Hey, thanks for being with us. Tomorrow we're going to pick up Hezekiah gets sick, and we're going to find out about his prayer once again. God bless you. See you tomorrow.